Hello, awesome people! This is Ben from Berlin. I'm from the north of China, where eating dumplings is a family obligation. You eat at least 20 dumplings on basically every traditional holiday. Otherwise, you
dishonor on your whole family.
And probably the most famous dumpling from the north is 猪肉白菜水饺, water-boiled dumplings with minced pork and Chinese cabbage. And we are going to make it today. By the way, if you are looking for a vegan dumpling recipe, check my 5-color dumpling video. For the filling, we need minced pork and Chinese cabbage. It can be replaced with ordinary cabbage, spring onion, garlic, and ginger. I will write down the measurement of each ingredient in the description. To mince the ginger and spring onion, you need a very sharp knife. First, slice them into thin pieces. Second, shred them into slim strips. Third, chop them into tiny cubes. Or just use a blender. Mix the ginger and spring onion with 150 ml water, leave it aside for later. Chop the Chinese cabbage into small pieces. If you use the ordinary cabbage, remove the hard stems and only use the leaves. The cabbage is too crunchy. Add 2 grams of salt and wait for 20 minutes. The salt will dehydrate the cabbage and make it softer. While sucking water out of the cabbage, we actually also need to add water into the meat. Filter out the ginger spring onion water and slowly add it into the meat. Meanwhile, quickly stir the meat in one direction until the water is fully absorbed. This is how to make the dumplings juicy. Add salt, MSG, and soy sauce. Continue to stir in the same direction until it's well mixed. Now check the cabbage and you should see a lot of water. Squeeze out even more water with a strainer or a cheesecloth. The more water you squeeze out, the better the cabbage can absorb the flavors from the meat and seasonings. So use your full strength. You will eat a lot of dumplings later, so some cardio exercise now doesn't hurt. Lay the cabbage on top of the meat and ginger spring onion on top of the cabbage. For a richer taste, add some 5-spice powder. To learn more about the essential and optional ingredients of Chinese cooking, check my other video. Fry some Sichuan pepper with vegetable oil in low heat until the peppers turning brown. Filter out the peppers and immediately pour the oil on top of the 5-spice powder, ginger, and spring onion. The heat of the oil will activate the aroma of the spices. Add the sesame oil as a final touch. Mix the oil with cabbage first, and then mix everything together. The filling is done. And now let's make the wrappers. If this is your first time to make dumplings, I suggest you just buy the wrappers from Asian market. It's totally fine, but today we are going to hand make the wrappers. For the type of flour, we need to use the white flour with a medium level of gluten. In Germany, it's Weizenmehl to 55. In UK, it's plain flour, and in US, it's called all-purpose flour. Prepare 300 gram flour and 1 gram salt in a big bowl. Add warm water little by little and mix them. The ratio between flour and water is around 2 to 1. For 300 gram flour, you need around 150 gram of warm water. You may need a little bit more or less, depending on how dry the flour is. The trick is to check the bottom of the bowl. If there's no dry powder anymore, stop adding water. Even if it's still not a whole piece of dough yet, it should be like this. Scrape the sides of the bowl, knead the dough together roughly. It's still pretty rough and ugly, but don't worry. Cover the dough and let it rest for 20 minutes. The dough is like the ugly duckling. It needs a bit of time to transform. After 20 minutes, continue to knead it for 2 minutes, and then you will have a beautiful, soft, smooth dumpling dough. Now we need to split the dough into dumpling size. Rip the dough in half and we handle them one by one. Poke a hole in the middle and make a big donut. Rotate the donut and stretch it evenly with 2 hands. Keep enlarging it until the diameter of the ring is around 2.5 cm, roughly the size of a bigger coin. Cut the donut open, now you have a sausage. Roll the sausage with your hands to make it round and even, and divide it into marshmallows. Each marshmallow should be around 10 grams. But it's not science. It can be 9 grams, 12 grams, all good. At the end, maybe some dumplings are bigger and some are smaller, but they are equally delicious. To prevent the marshmallows from sticking together, sprinkle some flour and keep them separate from each other. Cover them with a piece of wet cloth. To roll the wrapper, you need a small and slim rolling stick. Sprinkle a generous amount of flour on the worktop, take a marshmallow, press it on the worktop with your hand, make sure it's covered with flour on both sides. Use your dominant hand to roll the stick over the dough from the bottom, and the other hand holds the top and rotate the dough simultaneously. 2 important tips. First, don't roll over the whole dough. You only need to roll over the 40% from the bottom part. In fact, the best wrapper should be thinner on the edge and thicker in the middle. Second, when you rotate the dough, also gently stretch it a little bit. It will help the dough expand easier and quicker. To be honest, it's a little bit challenging at the beginning. Take your time to practice. Also, don't worry if the wrappers are not perfectly round. You can still make very nice dumplings out of them. The wrappers get dry very easily, so it's better if you have 2 persons. One makes wrappers and one wraps the dumplings at the same time. If you are 1 person, alternate between the tasks of making 4 to 5 wrappers and wrapping them into dumplings. Making dumplings with handmade wrappers is so much easier than with the supermarket wrappers, as handmade ones are stretchy and easier to seal. If you are using the supermarket wrappers, please check the 5-color dumplings video for the instruction. Put some filling in the middle of the wrapper. Now I want to show you 3 ways to seal the dumplings. First, the easy way. Fold the wrappers in half, pinch the opposite sides together, and that's it. Second, the pretty way. Again, fold the wrapper in half, only pinch the tips of the opposite sides together. And then create the pointy ends of the dumplings, not in the middle of each side. One edge should be shorter than the other one. Keep the shorter edge straight and pinch small wrinkles on the longer edge. In this way, the dumpling has a nice curvy shape. Third, the fast way. Use your thumb and index finger to clamp the wrapper together. It's super fast. It's just how my mom do it all the time. Make sure you sprinkle a lot of flour on a cutting board and put the dumplings on it. After all the efforts you have made for the dumplings, you don't want them to be ruined by a sticky cutting board. Boiling dumplings in the water is the most common way to cook dumplings in the north of China. When the water is hot and bubbling, gently put the dumplings into the water one by one. Stir the water very slowly, just to make sure the dumplings do not stick to the bottom. Also, don't put too many dumplings in one pot. They need enough space to swim. When the water starts to boil again, lower the heat until the water is just simmering. Continue to stir the water slowly until all the dumplings float on the water. Cook for another 2 minutes and then take them out with a strainer. Water-boiled dumplings are very soft, tender, and juicy. It doesn't have a punching flavor, but it's so warm and comforting that you just can't stop from eating them. And the more you eat, the more layers of tastes and textures you will discover in your mouth. I guess that's why we eat dumplings on every traditional holiday. It reminds you the beauty of the ordinary life in the family.